Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever cried yourself to sleep asking, God, why did you let them do this to me? Have you ever trusted someone only to be betrayed in the worst way? It hurts, doesn't it? But what if I told you that your pain is not a mistake? What if the very thing that broke you is actually building you? Pain is one of the most misunderstood experiences in life. When we go through suffering, our first reaction is to question God. Why did this happen to me? Why did you allow this pain? But what if I told you that pain is not just an accident or a punishment? What if your greatest struggles are actually part of God's divine plan to shape your destiny? Throughout history, every great leader, every person with a strong calling has endured moments of deep pain. Joseph, a man chosen by God, was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. If you looked at his life in those moments, you would think, this man is cursed. Where is God? But in reality, God was right there, orchestrating everything. The pit was not the end of Joseph's story. It was the beginning of his journey to the palace. The suffering was necessary because it refined him, strengthened him, and prepared him to handle the responsibility of ruling a nation. The same applies to you. The pain you are experiencing is not wasted. It is a tool in the hands of a loving God who sees the bigger picture. You may not understand why people betrayed you, why you lost that opportunity, why you faced rejection or heartbreak, but God does. He knows that without these challenges, you would not develop the strength, wisdom, and faith needed for the next season of your life. Pain pushes you beyond your comfort zone. If life was always easy, you would never grow. Imagine an athlete training for a championship. Every workout is painful. Every muscle aches. But without the discipline of enduring that pain, they would never build the strength required to win. God allows pain in your life for the same reason. He is preparing you for something bigger. Many times we want God to remove the pain immediately. We want instant relief. But sometimes the very thing we are praying for God to take away is the thing He is using to transform us. Look at gold. It must go through intense heat to be purified. Diamonds are formed under extreme pressure. Without the process, they remain ordinary rocks. In the same way, your pain is refining you, making you stronger, wiser, and more equipped for the purpose God has set before you. Instead of asking God, why me? Start asking God, what are you teaching me through this? When you shift your mindset from complaining to learning, you begin to see the purpose in your pain. Every tear you have shed, every disappointment you have faced, every betrayal you have endured, none of it is in vain. God is using all of it to mold you into the person He designed you to be. So don't let your pain make you bitter. Let it make you better. What seems like your greatest suffering today might be the very thing that leads you to your greatest blessing tomorrow. Trust God. Your pain has a purpose. Suffering is one of the most difficult experiences to endure, yet it is also one of the most powerful tools for growth. No one likes pain. No one wakes up and asks God for struggles, heartbreak, or betrayal. But if we look closely at our lives, we often realize that our greatest seasons of growth came through our most painful moments. The truth is, God does not allow suffering to destroy us. He allows it to develop us. Think about a seed. When a seed is planted, it is buried beneath the soil, surrounded by darkness and seemingly forgotten. If the seed could speak, it would probably say, why am I here? Why am I being covered up? Why am I being pressed down? But the seed doesn't realize that this process is necessary for it to grow. Without being buried, it can never take root. Without being pressed, it can never break through the ground. Without the struggle, it will never become what it was meant to be. Many times when we go through suffering, we feel just like that seed. We feel buried under the weight of pain, rejection, disappointment, and betrayal. It seems like life is pressing down on us from every side. We pray, but nothing changes. We cry out to God, but He seems silent. What we fail to see in those moments is that suffering is not the end. It is the process, just like the seed. We are not being buried to die. We are being planted to grow. Some of the strongest people you know did not become strong because life was easy for them. They became strong because they endured suffering and refused to give up. Every hardship, every painful experience, every loss has a way of refining us, stripping away our weaknesses and building our character. Pain teaches us lessons that success never could. It humbles us, it makes us more compassionate, and it forces us to rely on God in a deeper way. Imagine if life had no struggles. Imagine if everything came easily, with no opposition, no difficulty, no pain. Would we ever truly grow? Would we ever develop patience, resilience, or faith? The truth is, adversity is what makes us stronger. It is in the fire that gold is purified. It is under pressure that diamonds are formed. It is through suffering that we are transformed. When we go through trials, we have two choices. We can either become bitter or we can become better. We can either allow the pain to break us or we can allow it to build us. The choice is ours. The greatest testimonies in life come from those who chose to grow through their suffering rather than give up in their suffering. So if you are in a season of pain right now, know that it is not the end of your story. God is using this season to shape you, to strengthen you, and to prepare you for something greater. Stay faithful. Keep trusting. You are growing, even when it hurts. Rejection is one of the most painful experiences in life, whether it comes from people we love, opportunities we hoped for, or dreams we pursued. Rejection leaves us feeling unwanted, unworthy, and confused. Many times we cry out to God asking, "Why did they leave me? Why didn't I get that job? Why did this door close?" But what if I told you that rejection is not the end? What if the very thing that hurt you was actually God's way of redirecting you towards something greater? Throughout the Bible, we see stories of people who faced rejection but later realized that it was all part of God's divine plan. Joseph was rejected by his own brothers and sold into slavery. David was overlooked by his family when Samuel came looking for the next king. Jesus himself was rejected by his own people. But in every one of these cases, rejection was not a curse. It was a setup for something bigger. Joseph's rejection led him to Egypt, where he became second in command. David's rejection positioned him to become Israel's greatest king. Jesus' rejection led to his ultimate purpose, the salvation of the world. Sometimes the people who walk away from you are not meant to stay. The opportunities that slip through your fingers were never meant to be yours. When we experience rejection, our natural response is to hold on, to question, to beg for things to go back to how they were. But what we don't realize is that God sees what we cannot see. He knows that some relationships will hold us back, some jobs will limit us, and some places will keep us from reaching our full potential. When God allows rejection, it is often because He is protecting us from something we don't even realize. Think about a child reaching for something dangerous. A loving parent will pull them away, even if the child cries and doesn't understand why. In the same way, God sometimes removes things from our lives that we think we need. It may hurt in the moment, but His redirection is always for our good. What if that person who left you was actually blocking you from meeting the person God has destined for you? What if that job you didn't get would have kept you stuck in a place far below your potential? What if that closed door was God's way of preparing you for something so much greater? Instead of seeing rejection as a loss, start seeing it as redirection. God is too wise to let you settle for less than His best. When something doesn't work out, it is not because you are not good enough. It is because God has something better in store. So don't waste time crying over what didn't happen. Trust that God knows what He is doing. Every closed door, every disappointment, every rejection is pushing you closer to your destiny. Keep moving forward. What God has for you will never reject you. Before God elevates you, He tests you. Many people desire success, influence, and blessings, but they do not realize that with every great calling comes a season of testing. God will never place you in a position of power, responsibility, or purpose without first proving that you are ready for it. The challenges you face today are not meant to break you. They are meant to prepare you for what is coming. Look at the life of Joseph. God gave him a dream that he would one day be a ruler. But before he could step into that position, he had to endure years of trials. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. If Joseph had not gone through those painful tests, he would not have developed the wisdom, patience, and strength needed to lead an entire nation. The process was necessary. Without it, he would not have been ready for the responsibility God was preparing him for. Fasting is God's way of refining you. When gold is purified, it must go through fire to remove all impurities. Without the fire, it remains contaminated and weak. In the same way, God allows you to go through seasons of hardship to remove everything in you that could hinder your destiny. Pride, impatience, selfishness, fear. The tests you face are not to harm you, but to shape you into the person God needs you to be for the next level. Many people want the blessing, but they do not want the process. They want the promotion, but not the preparation. They want the crown, but not the cross. But every great leader in the Bible went through intense testing before their elevation. David was anointed as king, yet he spent years running for his life before he actually sat on the throne. Moses had a calling to lead Israel, yet he spent 40 years in the wilderness before stepping into his assignment. Even Jesus was tested in the wilderness before beginning his ministry. If God did not spare his own son from the process, why would he spare you? The tests you face may come in different forms: betrayal, financial struggles, delays, rejection, or personal loss. These are not signs that God has abandoned you. In fact, they are signs that he is preparing you. A teacher is always silent during a test because it is a moment of proving what has been learned. In the same way, God may feel silent in your struggles, but he is watching to see how you respond. Will you remain faithful when things don't go your way? Will you trust him even when you don't understand? Your test is not your punishment. It is your preparation. The greater the calling, the greater the testing. So if you feel like you are being tested beyond what you can bear, it is because God is preparing to elevate you beyond what you can imagine. Stay faithful. Pass the test. Your elevation is coming. When you have been wronged, betrayed, or mistreated, it is natural to want justice. You may wonder why God allowed people to hurt you, lie about you, or take advantage of you. It can feel unfair when those who caused you pain seem to continue prospering while you struggle to heal. But one thing is certain: God sees everything, and his justice is inevitable. You do not have to fight for revenge. God himself will make things right in his perfect time. Throughout the Bible, we see that God is the God of justice. He's never blind to the suffering of his children. When the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, it seemed as though their cries were unheard, but God was preparing their deliverance. He raised up Moses at the right time and executed judgment on Pharaoh. The people who oppressed them thought they had won, but God always has the final say. Many times, we expect justice to happen immediately. We want those who hurt us to suffer just as we did. But God's timing is not like ours. Sometimes he delays justice because he is giving people a chance to repent. He is merciful, even to those who have done wrong. However, if they refuse to change, his judgment will surely come. Think about Joseph. His own brothers betrayed him, threw him into a pit, and sold him into slavery. They went on with their lives while he suffered. It would have been easy for Joseph to become bitter and seek revenge, but he trusted God. Years later, when he was in a position of power, his brothers had to stand before him, not knowing who he was. Instead of taking revenge, Joseph saw that God had used their betrayal for his good. The same people who tried to destroy him had to bow before him. God's justice came in an unexpected way by elevating Joseph instead of punishing his enemies. Sometimes God's justice does not come in the form of punishment, but in the form of restoration. He will bless you in front of those who try to break you. He will prepare a table before you in the presence of your enemies, just as Psalm 23 says. The best revenge is not to see your enemies suffer, but to see yourself rise above the pain they caused. If you are waiting for justice, do not lose heart. You may not see it now, but God is already working behind the scenes. The lies spoken against you will be exposed. The people who try to block your path will watch as God makes a way for you. The pain they caused will be turned into purpose. You do not have to take matters into your own hands. God will handle it. Trust in his justice. Forgive, let go, and allow God to work. When the time is right, he will restore what was lost, heal what was broken, and repay you for everything you endured. His justice is not only inevitable, it is perfect. Many people desire to walk in their purpose, to fulfill their calling, and to live a life of meaning. But what most don't realize is that purpose does not come without a price. If you look at anyone whom God has used greatly, you will find a common pattern. Before they stepped into their destiny, they first went through seasons of pain. Pain is not a mistake. It is a prerequisite for purpose. When God has a great calling on your life, he will allow you to go through things that others may never experience. Your trials are not random. They are shaping you, molding you, and preparing you for what is ahead. Without the crushing, the oil cannot flow. Without the pressing, the anointing does not come. The suffering you endure is not to destroy you, but to equip you for the impact you are meant to have. Look at Moses. Before he became the great deliverer of Israel, he spent 40 years in the wilderness, feeling forgotten. Look at David. Before he wore the crown, he spent years running for his life from King Saul. Look at Jesus. Before he could bring salvation to the world, he had to endure the cross. The pain they faced was not a detour. It was part of the process. The same is true for you. You may wonder why you had to go through betrayal, heartbreak, loss, or rejection. You may question why God allowed you to suffer in ways that seem unfair. But what if I told you that your pain is connected to your purpose? What if the very thing that broke you is the key to your greatest assignment? God never wastes pain. The things you have endured are preparing you to help others who will go through similar struggles. Some of the most powerful ministries, businesses, and testimonies were birthed from seasons of suffering. The woman who overcame abuse now speaks life into others who feel trapped. The man who grew up in poverty now teaches financial wisdom. The person who battled depression now brings hope to the brokenhearted. Your pain is producing something greater than you can see right now. Purpose requires preparation, and preparation often comes through pain. If you desire to be a voice of change, you must first experience the struggles of those you are called to help. If you are meant to lead, you must first understand suffering, humility, and resilience. This is why God allows us to go through trials, not because He delights in our suffering, but because He knows what is on the other side. So do not let your pain make you bitter. Let it make you better. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Start asking, what is this preparing me for? The pain you have endured is not in vain. It is the foundation upon which your purpose is being built. Stay strong, keep trusting, and remember, your greatest calling often comes after your deepest pain. Every tear you have cried, every betrayal you have faced, every rejection you have endured, it was not for nothing. God has been using every painful experience to shape you, prepare you, and position you for the destiny He has designed for you. You may not see it now, but one day you will look back and realize that what hurt you the most was what helped you the most. Pain has a purpose. Suffering produces growth. Rejection is often God's redirection. Before every elevation, there is a test. God's justice is inevitable, and your pain is the foundation upon which your purpose is built. None of this is an accident. The struggles you have faced were never meant to break you. They were meant to refine you. So, I challenge you today, do not allow your pain to make you bitter. Do not let the wounds of the past hold you back from the future God has prepared for you. Instead, let every hardship make you stronger, wiser, and more prepared for what is to come. The enemy thought he could use your pain to destroy you, but God is using it to develop you. What the enemy meant for evil, God is turning for your good. Your story is not over. The very people who try to break you may one day see you rise. The doors that closed were never meant to be yours because God has something greater ahead. The suffering you have endured is shaping you into the person God needs you to be. Trust the process. Trust God's plan. Keep moving forward. One day, you will understand why God let them hurt you. And when that day comes, you will no longer look at your pain with regret. You will look at it with gratitude, knowing that it was necessary for your destiny. Stay faithful. Keep believing. Your purpose is greater than your pain.